Hello, and welcome to Topper Machine. My name is Josh Topper. Today we're going to work on the gray drum drive garden tractor front axle assembly. Here is our front wheel. I had already taken the spindle apart and got it ready. Put the square spindle here, and we can start getting our measurements, figure out what we need to get this so that it'll steer correctly. And this is going to all be trial and error. I'm sure it's going to be pretty screwed up, but it should work. You know, I've never done a front axle before, especially on something like this. So I guess we're going to find out, aren't we? So we'll get started on this, get the parts ready and on the mill, and get moving on. So first we're going to drill a pilot hole. And then each hole after this we'll do a much larger, just shy of an inch, and then this will get reamed once the extension is welded on. So we're going to build a little extension to go on here yet besides to give it a little more stability, and then it'll get reamed to 1 inch all the way through for our bushing. them all welded up, we'll take them over and ream them so that the alignment is perfect and start making the bushings. Now we have our spindles welded up, bored. We just did it with a reamer. No sense in setting up a boring head. Reamers are just as good as boring heads if you have them. They are expensive sometimes, especially when you get into the shell reamers, the big ones. We've got a few that are up in the 3-4 inch range that we've done about 3 feet deep on a hole. It gets expensive when you get into that bigger stuff. So now we'll move on to the little Monarch and make our bushings that'll go inside of here. And these bushings are going to be made out of Nylotron. So we'll start on those. So I went and I cut off the excess of our axle or spindle here. I drilled and tapped it for grease. They are a matched pair, left and right. And these are our bushings. So you may have wondered when I was turning these why I put the groove here. Well, this is a grease groove. So when I put that in the spindle, the grease will come into this groove, fill this groove, and then come in these two holes to grease it evenly. So let's go ahead and assemble this and move forward. So there it is, our first spindle installed. Obviously we'll have to take the bushing back out before welding the steering arm on, but the spindle is in there, and there's clearance here to drop our pin in once we design the rest, the nut hole part of it that's on the axle. And I think that'll probably wind up being our next video, is the nut hole. Let me bring this up, let you see a good close-up of the spindle, or the spindle itself. And then bushings were Nylotron GSM. I've been using this stuff for quite a few years. We've been replacing a lot of bushings for some of our customers, replacing bronze with Nylotron GSM, and the wear characteristics have been just incredible. I have a good friend who actually makes a lot of gears out of Nylotron, and they hold up really well. So it's a good product, good material. Okay, so now our spindles are completely done. They're installed back in the hubs. The Nylotron bushing is installed. They got the grease zerk on there. It's ready for the next step, which will be the yoke that gets welded to the end of the axle, and that's going to be a piece of 2-inch flat. It'll get bent with two 3/4 inch holes for our 3/4 inch pivot. So we're using 41-43 hard rod for our pivot shaft. And there's also, I got to order them yet, but I'm going to have a 2-inch die spring sitting on top of this, because the original Grays had a spring on top for a little bit of suspension here. So, but our next thing is to get that first piece done and bent and in place, and then weld the axle together. So that's our next step. We'll start cutting the material for that and get it up on the mill and drill it. No sense in using any fancy stuff. No, we don't need to use a boring head on that or anything. We just drill the holes. It should hold up just fine. So our axle is assembled, yet we still got to do our steering linkages. So what we're going to do, and we've already done the research into it, is an Ackerman steering control, which uses arms at an angle. And what you do is you draw a line from your center of your rear axle through your spindle, and that's the angle you use to set your arms. So we already know it's going to be about 15.3 degrees. So we're going to cut our spindles, or our arms, drill and tap them for our steering linkages, and then mill the angle and weld them on. Stages of the front axle for the Gray drum drive garden tractor. Now, we got our die springs in there for our suspension, our Nylotron GSM bushings for bearings, or for the spindles or for the rope steering. The spindles are greasable. We got our steering linkage arms welded on. Next thing to do is to make the tie rods, and then to make the rest of the front suspension and everything else. There'll be a tube that comes off of here with the steering shaft that comes through, and then it'll actually be a tube on the body too that pivots, and that'll be a bunch of Nylotron bushings in there as well, and grease wool, and It'll be a lengthy project just to get it that right, but we got the axle, the first stages. So stay tuned. That'll be next time. Subscribe. You can follow us on Facebook at Topper Machine LLC, or you can go to our website, www.toppermachine.com. We're going to have a few videos coming up. We've got a new arbor for a circular sawmill that we're going to be doing soon, probably some babbiting videos, and we are also working on them bearing guides for bandsaw. Those will be finishing up, and that video will be coming up real soon here. So stay tuned, subscribe, and get out in that shop, and let's get it done right the first time.